So something I noticed recently is a lot of people are back home living with their parents, including myself, whether it was due to the pandemic, financial reasons, or whatever your situation is. I think there is a lot of stigmas and shame and guilt that can come with living at home or with your parents in your 20s. And I can only give my perspective on this, but I've gone through every emotion possible when it comes to this. I have been living with my parents for the past 4 years, since August 2019, and it's not something I ever expected or ever thought that I would be doing again, but I've made a lot of peace with my situation and no longer feel the shame and guilt that I once felt. I actually feel grateful for having the ability, the luxury, and the privilege to be living with my parents right now, especially during this time. Hi, I'm Julia. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new here. This video has been highly requested, and I wanted to give you my perspective and my story with moving back in with my family and my parents during my 20s and what it's been like for me. I've been here for 4 years now, and I am starting to plan my move out soon, but I know this is something a lot of you guys can relate to, and I wanted to share this with you so you feel less alone, because maybe your friends are living on their own. I know most of my friends are living on their own, but I look around my neighborhood and a lot of people who live on my street or down the street from me who are in their 20s are actually living with their parents again or never moved out. And whatever their reasoning is, it's different for everyone, but it does make me feel a little bit more comfort in knowing that I'm not the only one doing this. I think most of us do want to live on our own and have our own place, but if you're going through something and you do have the ability and the luxury to stay with your parents while you're getting everything sorted out, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So I just wanted to put that out there, but we gotta take this back to August 2019 when I first moved in, or moved back, shall I say. I was living in LA for 4 years. I moved out when I was 18, and I moved back and forth from Philly to LA twice between the ages of 18 and 19 until I finally settled in LA, and I lived there for the next 4 years. But being somebody that doesn't work a typical 9-to-5 job, and being someone who has always been an entrepreneur, worked for themselves, done social media, I've always had to provide for myself. And at the time when I was a teenager and in my early 20s, I wasn't really thinking about the future or saving money or where my money was going to come from or not, because I was making so much money. I just kind of assumed that I would always be, which was not the case. So I learned the hard way that when you live in a very expensive city and you don't financially plan or budget, you can spend all your money and then end up in a tough situation where you don't have any. For me, I could have went and got a job, but I didn't have a full college education, so it wasn't going to be a high-paying job. It was probably going to be more of like a minimum wage job, and that would be very hard for me to do, and also do the social media stuff and pay for my apartment in LA all at the same time. It made the most sense for me to come back, but I didn't want to come back, so the universe ended up kind of forcing me to come back when the apartment that I moved into got mold, and I had to abruptly leave the apartment. And when that happened, I just decided, okay, you know, my savings is running low. I'm not really making as much money as I was. I will just go back home for a few months and figure it out. So I went back home for a few months. I was gonna figure it out. And then next thing you know, I got into a really toxic relationship, got super distracted, the pandemic hit, and my mental health was probably the worst it had ever been. And I couldn't find the energy within me to get back into my social media business and even function as a normal human being. So the fact that I did have my family to lean on and stay with was very fortunate and helpful, and honestly a blessing during that time, because I just was not okay. Like mentally, emotionally, I was probably the worst I had ever been for the longest amount of time that I've ever spent in that state. I've had lots of mental health issues my whole life, but that was I want to say 2.5 year span of just being down and really struggling. So within that time period, I was able to get therapy. I did DBT therapy, and that really pulled me out of it, and I was able to start my swimwear business, get back into social media, grow my Snapchat, and really start regrowing my savings. This whole past year of 2023 has been the first year where I've been consistently working and been consistently saving. I've made the most money this year that I have made in the past 3 or 4 years, which is amazing. And because I have been so fortunate and lucky to be able to stay with my parents, I've been able to save all of that money. So that way, when I do move out, I'll be prepared with a year's rent, all the money I need for all my food and life expenses, and I won't be struggling or having to get extra work on top of my social media work. I will be able to completely focus on growing the social medias, my business, and also living on my own. So that is sort of my situation in a nutshell. At first, when I was going through my toxic relationship, I was very ashamed for living with my parents still. I felt very guilty for it, and I felt like I was the only one. And part of that was because I had somebody in my ear kind of feeding into that and planting those thoughts in my brain because I was already in such a low place to begin with. I took it to heart and I really thought that that was the case. But then when I took a step back from the toxic relationship, got out of it, did a bunch of therapy and inner work, that was when I was finally able to realize, no, I'm not a burden to my family for one. They wouldn't have allowed me to be here if they really truly did not want me to be here. That's one thing. Another thing is I'm actually really blessed and lucky and privileged to be able to live with my parents right now and have this time to heal all these emotional things that I need to heal, all these physical things I need to heal, all these financial things that I need to heal. And when I started looking at it from that perspective of, wait a second, I could be in a shelter or couch surfing or working jobs that I don't want to work to just sustain my existence on this earth versus having the comfort of family to stay with while I'm healing all these things I need to heal and not having to add on all these extra jobs just to pay for existing, then my mindset changed and I became very grateful, and that fueled me to want to continue healing and working harder to grow my businesses and step into the new version of myself that sees challenges and things that maybe other people might see as negative as blessings and things that I get to overcome, things that get to help me on my journey. When I was able to switch my mindset and be grateful for my situation because it could be so much worse, that's when I stopped feeling all the shame and guilt. It's not something I advertise when I meet new people. I'm not like, oh my gosh, like I live with my parents, don't come over. If it comes up in conversation, it comes up, but I'm not like hiding it or ashamed of it or guilty for it. It's not like my biggest secret, you know? It's like, okay, this is what it is. I'm working towards moving somewhere that is very expensive, so I need to save my money, and because I am lucky enough to have a room here at my parents still, it makes it a lot easier. It makes it easier for me. I'm able to help with things with them, and we get to have a beneficial situation. If I was just here draining everyone of their energy, being this negative person all the time, complaining and bringing bad vibes, I don't think they would want me here. But because I've done so much inner work and healed so many things, me being here is not a burden to them. It's like company and companionship. I'm their family, so they want to help me. Just like they're my family, if they have something, I want to help them. But not every family is like that, and I am very aware of that. So that's another reason for me to see this as something to be grateful for, as opposed to something super negative. That sucks, because in actuality, it doesn't suck. Even if I did move out tomorrow and live somewhere else, I'd still come back every few months for a few weeks at a time because I like being here. And even when I did live in LA and I had my apartment, I would come back for a month sometimes just because LA is tough. It's a great place to live if you work in the industry and you do have good friends there. There's so many amazing things about LA, don't get me wrong, but sometimes you need a break from the city, and it's nice to be able to come back here and be with family. So even if I did not live here, I would still visit often. So when I thought of everything like that, it completely changed my perspective, and I was able to heal that sort of wound around needing support from other people, because I've always been so self-sufficient my whole life that I was ashamed of needing to depend on people because I didn't want to. I didn't want to have to. I was always the person people would go to for things, and I was always the person that other people could depend on for a place to stay, money, food, whatever it was. And when I needed that, the only people that really were there for me were my parents, and of course like my best friend, but I was gonna go to my parents first because that made the most sense, and they were more than happy to help. So that is my story, my situation. I know everyone's is different and not everyone has a loving family to go to, so I completely completely take that into account. But if you are somebody who is living with your parents or your family or someone who is supporting you right now, my best advice to you is to look at it in a way where you can be grateful for having the support and see the people that are supporting you in a positive light. Because the more you see them in a positive light and the more you look at your situation with gratitude as opposed to shame and guilt, it's gonna make it more enjoyable, less uncomfortable, and you're probably gonna get out of your situation faster when you look at it that way versus feeling bad about yourself being stuck in your situation. Because the truth is, you're not stuck. This is something you are choosing, and it is an opportunity that is presented to you, and why wouldn't you take an opportunity that can be very beneficial and helpful for you at the time? So with that being said, I don't plan on living here forever. I'm sure if you are in the same situation as me, you don't plan on living with your family forever either, but it can be a helpful stepping stone in the process of saving your money, looking for a job that is fulfilling for you, whatever it is. Like I said earlier, you know, I have a plan, I'm saving my money, and I'm almost to my goal, but I have a feeling I'm gonna reach my goal sooner than I am ready to move out, and I have gotten really comfortable being here. So it's going to be very uncomfortable and a little challenging to move because I realized that the amount of time that I was living on my own in California has been the exact amount of time that I've been living back here. So I've gotten very comfortable and used to living here, and it's gonna take me pushing myself to move out and move back to California. I plan on living alone, which is going to be another big change because I'm used to living in a house with 3 to 4 people. So there's going to be a lot of big changes coming soon. I am ready for them, and I've been wishing for them for the past 4 years, but at the same time it is a little bittersweet because it feels very safe to be in a house where both your parents are and your siblings, and there's some type of like childhood comfort in that, and also living in your childhood room. But the time is coming and I'm almost ready, so I'm gonna do it. And I also know that I am still blessed and lucky to still have this room for the next however many years my parents decide to keep this house, and I know that I can come back here and visit whenever I need. I also want to note something to take into account. We are going through the most inflation that we've ever seen in this country, and it is so hard to be able to afford food, clothes, shelter, all the necessities, and that is something that our parents' generation never had to deal with. Our grandparents didn't even have to deal with this extremeness of inflation during the Great Depression, so we are going through something that the world has never seen when it comes to affording things, and you need to give yourself grace because your parents or whoever is supporting you worked really hard to be able to have this ability, and if you are going through whatever you're going through right now and you need their support, it is there for a reason and they want you to accept it. So when you're feeling shame and you're being really hard on yourself about the situation you're in, try to remind yourself of those things and also the fact that you do have this support system, and try to validate yourself and your feelings, but also look for the things to be grateful for in it. And I think that will help you a lot. So that is it for this video. I will see you in next week's video. I love you guys so much. Bye.